Kenya is among the African nations that China has had a growing influence in since the turn of the millennium. China has spent billions of dollars in Africa over the past few decades. Majority of its investments in Kenya go to infrastructure development, much like what China has been doing in the rest of Africa as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, which is an estimated $1 trillion plan to connect the country to trade routes all over the world. I'm your host Kasim, and thanks for joining me for another KJ vid. In this video we will discuss China's interests in Kenya. Just before we start, please kindly open your browser kjvids.co.uk and subscribe to one of our plans which will give you unlimited access to our content. Your support will help KJ Vids remain politically and financially independent. We have also left a unique link in the description which will give you a 50% discount. China-Kenya relations date back to December 1963 when Kenya gained independence from British colonial rule. The alliance between the two nations started gaining momentum in the past couple of decades as China boosted investments aimed at infrastructure development in developing countries around the globe. It was the election of Kibaki as President of Kenya in 2002 that paved the way for a new era of Chinese investments in the country. The Global Development Strategy, officially adopted as the Belt and Road Initiative, was initiated in 2013. The Belt and Road Initiative currently involves more than 125 countries spanning Asia, Europe, Africa, the Middle East and the Americas that have signed collaboration agreements according to official data from China. China is flexing its economic muscles in Africa, not because it wants to colonize Africa per se, but because of mercantilist ambitions in search for raw materials such as petroleum, timber, cobalt, platinum, copper, diamonds and so on. There has been a growing dominance of Chinese influence on the economic front of Kenya. China has penetrated the small and medium enterprise market in Kenya, causing a lot of controversies in Kenya. Chinese foreign direct investments have been on the up in Nairobi, opening up the Kenyan economy to a range of consumer and industrial goods from the second largest economy while enjoying technical and financial assistance. There has been growing pressure on Kenya in recent years to make a shift from a consumer-driven economy to an export-driven economy. It currently imports double the amount it exports to the rest of the world. Kenya introduced a procurement bill in 2018 made to address the concern of the local traders and the general public. The bill replaces the old rule which needed 51% of ownership of an entity to be considered Kenyan. The new law would require 100% ownership by Kenyans to ensure ownership. Local traders find it increasingly difficult to compete with Chinese counterparts because China has a policy to give loans at only 3% interest rates, which they do to many African nations. According to the 2018 figures, over 400 Chinese-owned companies were operating in Kenya, creating thousands of jobs for the local community. Since 2015, China has provided Kenya with 67,000 training opportunities. Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Wu Peng, stated earlier this year that huge infrastructural projects like the Standard Gauge Railway connecting the key port city of Mombasa to Nairobi may take long to yield returns, whose value will grow in time, he stressed. The Standard Gauge Railway, according to Wu, is a flagship project that showcases the fast speed and high quality of China-Kenyan cooperation. The construction of the SGR project has driven economic growth of Kenya by 1.5% and created 46,000 jobs for local residents. Wu also said that the train shortened the Nairobi-Mombasa trip from over 10 hours to 5 hours. Since its launch in May 2017, with an average booking rate of 99%, over 2.7 million passengers have travelled by the SGR and around 4.2 million tonnes of goods have been transported, said Wu. Apart from foreign direct investments, the Chinese ambassador claimed that China had made non-financial direct investment in Kenya worth around $520 million in 2018. He also said that currently there are over 2,400 Kenyan students studying in China, and in 2018 over 81,000 Chinese tourists travelled to Kenya for leisure and adventure. the first quarter of 2019, Kenya signed deals worth $2.23 billion with China to build a tech city and to build an expressway in Kenya. The Konza data center and smart cities deal is worth $1.72 billion, while the JKIA James Gichuru Expressway project is worth $500,000. Between 2006 and 2017, China has loaned $132 billion to African countries. Many believe that these investments are a debt trap and that most African nations will not be able to pay these debts back. China has always denied being involved with any kind of debt trap policy. Kenya ranks as Africa's third most indebted country to China for the period between 2000 and 2017, according to data from the China-Africa Research Initiative. The country's current debt to China is understood to be about $9.8 billion, which has funded large chunks of national infrastructure, including a number of highways and the Standard Gauge Railway, which provides a high-speed connection between Mombasa and Nairobi, the country's capital, to facilitate the import and export of goods. In 2018, reports started to emerge stating that Kenya is fast getting caught in China's debt trap diplomacy, as a result of which China is preparing itself to seize major assets, the most significant of which is the port of Mombasa. Despite there being no authenticity in these reports, some media reports claim that Kenya's Auditor General had stated it may only be a matter of time until the port is taken over by China, because it is seemingly increasingly likely that Kenya will fail to pay off their debts on time. The Belt and Road Initiative presents standard risks with regards to major infrastructure projects, debt risks, risks of corruption and procurement in government, stranded infrastructure projects, environmental risks and social risks, all of these primarily in the developing world context. In recent years, Kenyan media have been drawing analogies with Sri Lanka's debt situation, with experts warning the country about the possible consequences of Chinese loans. There are no formal defence-specific agreements, however Kenya has been increasingly buying Chinese arms for two reasons. Firstly, they are cheaper than Western arms, and secondly because of the flourishing bilateral trade relations. According to some of the recent available information, Kenya purchased arms worth approximately $76 billion in 2015. According to the Stockholm Peace Research Institution, the purchase included tanks, armoured vehicles and spare parts. CIPRI's figures also revealed that East Africa has increased its military spending over the years, with Kenya leading the race. China have expanded investments in Kenya since 2002, and the two nations have since seen increasing levels of trade and cooperation, and currently China is Kenya's largest trading partner. If the Belt and Road Initiative is to be completed, transport projects could reduce travel times along economic corridors by 12%, increase trade by 2.7% and a 9.7% income increase, lifting 7.6 million people from extreme poverty, and Kenya would be among the significant beneficiaries. However, there's still a long way to go. The ever-improving bilateral relations and increased trade and cooperation between the two nations could potentially be a win-win for both parties. However, there are many skeptics who would disagree, pointing the finger at China as the sole winner. Only time will tell what will eventually happen and what China's real motivations are. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, especially if you are from Kenya. Please don't forget to subscribe to our website kjvids.co.uk for unlimited access to our content. We have left a 50% discount link in the description below. Thanks for watching again, and see you next time.